pummeled into them from day one. Call. The moment you question, call. Call us on speakerphone in front of your customer. We'll educate them and you at the same time. Humility provides the transparency and trust that somebody in my home I would demand from otherwise. And we hope they bring it. We think they're going to bring it. And then when they come in smelling like cigarettes with their pants around their, low around their waist, it's like, man, that's all ruined. So just be all those good things.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast, where we talk about all things franchising. Now, here's your host, Dr. John P. Hayes.
Hi, it's John Hayes, another episode of the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast, and my guest today from Dallas, Texas, Chris Stuart, who is the Chief Information Officer of Bloomin Blinds. Welcome. Thank you,
Good morning.
Chris.
Thank you. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. Thank you. So, give us a little bit of some insight as to how did you discover franchising? When did you get into franchising? Nobody grows up wanting to be a franchisor or a franchisee. Most people don't know anything, don't even know that's a choice. So how did it happen for you?
Yeah, I think like most, I accidentally found franchising looking for the happy place in business. I think a lot of people find dissatisfaction with other business models and look for something greater or better. And franchising, I think a lot of times presents that opportunity. And for us, we were running a mom and three sons retail operation. And once we figured out that we also desired something greater with more freedom, capacity to grow, scalability, and all the things that franchising provides, it seemed pretty no-brainer decision.
And had you considered it previously, or did somebody come along and say, hey, you guys really ought to franchise this?
Honestly, no. And honestly, my brother Kelsey found franchising long before it was ever known to me. And to your first comment, I would offer that my two children at 8 and 13 may be the first, probably not the first, but will be two children that will grow up desiring to be franchisors or in the franchise community to some capacity.
Yeah, definitely not the first. You're a little late on that.
Yeah, I believe that.
You'd have to go back to the 1950s with Bill Rosenberg, Dunkin' Donuts. His son Bob ran Dunkin' Donuts for 30 years. And then along came Don Dwyer in 1980 with Rainbow International. And then Ray Titus, the Titus family, Roy Titus, Minuteman Press, Sinorama. But there aren't very many families in franchise work.
To have my family emulate those as leaders in community, I could not ask for more.
Exactly right. So what is it about a family business that maybe attracts you or doesn't attract you? What do you like and dislike about family business?
Honestly, it's the balance of the pros and cons, the commitment to the entity as the family, as well as the ability to unearth the pain points without some of the other encumbrances of non-family relationships. There's a path of communication that I think being a family entity provides that allows for an ability of clarity that is sometimes required to be, shall we say, second fiddle to human considerations to a stranger or someone you don't have that familial relationship with. There's a ability to extract information from your brother of 40 years that a coworker of 6 months may not have. So for all those reasons, I think it really shines. But on the flip side, there are some pulls that'll happen in a family business. People will take liberties or privileges that may not otherwise be extended in other environments. So I think that balancing of the scales of the two benefits and cons of the thing are honestly what I like. I mean, keeping those in alignment, I think, is where progress lies.
Yeah. How many franchisees now with Bloomin Blinds?
I think the number right now is 86 franchisees and 158 active territories.
Yeah. And are you, how will that change by January 1? How many more? What are you planning for the year?
There's a number planning. I think we'll reach another dozen or so by the end of the year. But honestly, it's which ones fit. We've really learned what it meant to pick a good franchisee, and it's taken a couple iterations of the brand. a couple new benchmarks or blueprints of the franchisee candidate. As certainly as the brand is scaled and as we've matured, the identity of the ideal candidate has also evolved. So I think now that we're getting to the point where acceleration is really becoming a reality, it's even more, there's more responsibility on picking the right ones so you don't encumber the others with a burden of for their previous investment.
So you mentioned it's taken a couple of iterations. So I'm interested in asking you how the business model has evolved since you first began franchising and why were changes required? And then we'll talk a little bit more about franchisee fit.
Yeah, sure. I think it was a fundamental immaturity in franchising that required an advancement of the brand and our capabilities and I'll use the word again, maturity as a brand. We understood what franchising was, but did not understand the responsibility of being a franchisor. What that meant, what the obligation was, what the accountability level was to those people that are surrendering their life savings to your plan. And it took a little bit of brand building, a brand evolution. We always knew we could teach the job really well. We always promised to build a brand one day when we figured it out. For those that went with us, trusted us, gave us that grace to do it. I think we've performed. How we view it is very much a icebreaker mentality. We have to go first to clear the path for those that asked us to, and we promised to do so for. And in that, I think having the repetitions of experience creates an understanding that you can't really hide from. And I think once you have the knowledge, you have. I think the saying goes, once you have an ability, you have a responsibility.
So early on, then, were there franchisees that you felt you selected inappropriately, or were there franchisees who, for whatever reason, just didn't perform well? And how did it happen?
I won't run from the fact that there was absolutely ones that we questioned their viability on in the early days, and surprisingly, some really performed well outside of our
Yeah.
expectations. And that's when we really learned to let go of the preconceived notion of what on the first impressions, what they think they might be, and just let time and experience and life play itself out. We found better tools to map the candidates and to better pick aside from just emotional response. But yeah,
Mhm.
there was some better decisions that could have been made along the years, negatively, positively.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's blame to be applied
Yeah.
versus just
Just the way it happened.
acknowledging the evolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, but what does that do to a young franchisor when you realize, all right, we only have, let's say, five franchisees, and two of them, gee, haven't given the opportunity, they wouldn't have wanted us and we wouldn't have wanted them. Maybe it's that way, maybe not. But what does that do in terms of being able to get validation from franchisees to sell more? What does it do in the time, the cost to you in training and support? And then training again and
sure.
supporting and supporting and supporting. What are the negatives of that for a franchisor?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is that it's tough to get validation. It's tough to get, if you can't have your existing franchisees telling potential franchisees that they're having a good time and making money, it's going to be real difficult to onboard them. That
Yeah.
being said, I think if it's just a sales tool versus an education tool, you're going to find that a lot more difficult. If those franchisees have a true clarity on why they're not meeting marks, whatever it is, training, education, whatever else that may be required, I think there's a value to that ability to clearly explain to the incoming franchisee. And I think that's something our validators did really well. We always, in the early years, we just gave everybody the entire list. Call everybody on the list, good, bad, or ugly. There's no difference. Here's the list of closures as well. Call them and ask what happened. And I think the thing that everybody saw in our years of growing is we never lied to anybody. We never stole from anybody. We never took or deceived anybody in
Mhm.
our learning. We were always very upfront with what we knew, didn't know, and could and couldn't do. And when encumbered with things we couldn't do, we tried. Sometimes we won, sometimes we lost. But I think there was clarity in particularly to your point of those that left the system, still being validators for those that are onboarding, saying those things of, they were there 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. They were there right next to me. They were committed to me. Whatever happened after that, I think that's what people want to hear up front to a franchisor, that they're about to extend their life savings and future of their family too, is that commitment level that will be there when it gets rocky.
Mm-hmm. So this will be an easy question for you because your convention is fresh on your mind, your franchisee convention. When you think of the most successful franchisees, how are they different? Not only in personality, but in their behavior and their action. Talk about the best ones.
Introspective. They're willing to consider their effort and impact of it, not just the demanding this wasn't A plus or I should have done this. I guess the second part is the introspection. It's the ability to look back on the effort and analyze their component of it and bring that honestly to the conversation. If we didn't meet the mark, by all means, we own that and we will try to fix that. But I think the franchisees that are willing to say, I didn't bring my best self, or I didn't bring 10 out of 10 of me to this game, so I shouldn't really expect 10 out of 10 from the recipe, right? I used 2 eggs instead of 3 when the recipe calls for 3. So
No.
I think that level of introspection and being able to self-identify or at least self-manage the levers that all franchisees will choose to pull at different times, I think is a resiliency and all those other attributes, confidence, those are all very important. But I think the one that is least spoken of that has the greatest impact to advancement is introspection.
How do you find that? Or how do you know when you've got an introspective franchisee?
I don't know. I think it's evidenced. Not all introspective people are extroverts or introverts or desiring to share their journey. And I think at some degree, there's all of this is a risk tolerance capacity. So you get an idea of people's behavior patterns in previous adventures or lives or whatever else, and you make the most accurate assumption you can, and you believe people at their word. You trust the humanity of individuals for talking to you face to face. And at some point, if someone says, "I have 10 of these, and I'm going to bring all 10 of them," and you agree to, great, let's bring 10, and they bring 6. I hold no accountability for them only bringing 6 to the plate. So I think we're very honest with the responsibility of Z's and Zors in our system and what we are expected to do and what we promise to do, and then what we ask the franchisees, and that franchisee obligation piece is included in. And I think we're very overt with that conversation, so a lot of that stuff is avoided on the front end. And when it does bubble up, we can revisit a previous conversation that was made noteworthy and shared notes on to kind of go back and reset to that point.
Are there things that if you hear a prospective franchisee say, you would know that's an introspective person? We like that. That's going to work for us.
I think probably a more classically trained human behaviorist would probably be able to pull that out. I don't have any keywords or buzzwords that I look for or see. I think it's more of you get to understand people. I think in my previous career, I got to meet people in very high stress situations. And I think I got a good read on just general demeanor, body posture, kind of interaction, things like that. And I tend to pick up on those things pretty well, but I don't usually comment on them. I just let them be and let them evolve. And I try not to influence people's decision making that they would otherwise do on their own, just to be part of that.
Yeah. So it's about $100,000 investment in Bloomin' Blinds. Am I correct about that, or more now? Or
you're about stabbing in the middle.
Yeah. So how long does it take to train me to be a good franchisee?
To train you to be a good franchisee, I think you bring the mindset of a good franchisee to the game. I train you in the job. For us, it's 6 weeks onboarding, 4 weeks digital education, preliminary terminology, vocabulary, things like that. And then 2 weeks of in-person. Then we've got about 4 to 6 weeks of dedicated planned post-launch type training. To become a good business operator in our field, 6 months, 4 to 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
Some of the tools we're bringing, I think, are going to advance that a little bit faster.
Yeah.
We're trying to democratize the industry knowledge to new entries to the market, whether that's employee or franchisee. And I think that's going to move the needle quite a bit. But to the part of your first question, to be a good franchisee, I think good goes to mindset on how you view the franchising business model. And then after that, the rest is job function and adoption of industry.
So, am I correct that I heard that it's 2 weeks of training in person? And is that in Dallas?
Correct. That's 2 weeks of in-person training. We have a 3,600 square foot dedicated, basically window covering laboratory. It's a purpose-built facility with 26 openings of varying sizes, multiple doors, transom windows, all sorts of different things in there to actually get hands-on use of installation, measuring, assessment. We've got a 12 by 14 pergola, cedar pergola built indoors, along with a 500 square foot home built inside a climate controlled warehouse, so we can just focus on the task at hand. And this is what we're trying to teach is a skill set, which is just an assessment of an industry, of a singular product. And where we derive that training from is really my experience in the fire department, where we have, roof simulators or wall penetration simulators or whatever the case may be. You focus hyper religiously on just that skill set for the period of time that it becomes second nature, and you build the muscle memory. There's no distraction. There's no fancy paint on the props. They're very functional, but they're very utilitarian because you're teaching skills. And so that's what our training is. It's job training, skill set training, and then we hold hand to hand through the support, the coaching, and everything else downstream for the business development side of it. But for us, they got to be able to hit the ground running, generating revenue, and that's the job capacity from day one when they hit the ground. So that's where we focus. Is the training focuses on revenue generating skill sets as a job function. Business development training continues throughout the duration of the agreement.
And you said there was 6 weeks of onboarding. Is that done by Zoom or done by paperwork, or how does that happen?
Yeah, the 4 week digital onboarding prior to the 2 week training, there's a digital LMS, learning management system, along with there's over 120 years of industry experience in our office at the support team, specifically to the window covering. And that's all led, so all the onboarding and training is all led by window covering experienced personnel who know the topic, know the vocabulary and jargon of the industry to be able to convey that to the franchisees.
Yeah. And then how much of the job is marketing and sales being a franchisee? Some people aren't good at that. They're not extroverted, or they don't want to go out and meet people. Is that a requirement, or can they hire that because maybe they want to be the installer, which I don't know if that would make any sense, but maybe.
Yeah, it's not a requirement of the contract, but I think it's a requirement to success. I think unless you're buying multi-unit territories and doing a true investor type of transaction, certainly anything in the home services industry in the owner-operator sense, there is absolutely a networking social interaction requirement to success. If it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you don't have a job and you're not on the road simply marketing your van by driving the highways, there's a choice, cost benefit to every minute not spent networking, driving your business, finding other angles, particularly in the local market. That we provide the national reach, and the franchisee provides the local reach, and that's the give and take of it. They can't be national, and we can't be local. So they do theirs, we do ours, and together we both rise.
And then you have a good sized corporate team. A lot of what you do after that initial training is providing coaching and support. And how does that happen? How do franchisees get that? Is it one-on-one? Is it, hey, I have a problem, so I'm going to call the franchisor and they're going to give me the answer? Or talk about the support that they get after the initial training.
Simply all things yes. We have peer groups. Our fractional CFO has a coaching firm, business advancement, that he offers and makes available that knowledge to them. We have internal business coach that helps them work on P&L management and making sure numbers are managed correctly and straight. I think one of the things that in our early years that we learned is how much owner operators live out of their business and how much that skews a proper P&L and can totally mask the profitability or lack of a franchisee. And so what we're really working on in this season is cleaning up those financials and making sure personal life and business life are separated so we can truly measure impact of business decisions, and then they can properly weight impact of personal decisions on that same financial capacity. So the support is very forthright. We are very upfront and asking for their inquiries. For 2 weeks straight, starting at confirmation day, they are, lack of a better term, browbeaten. If you have any doubts, any assumptions, any questions, don't make them call. Validate any guess you're about to make. We'd have franchisees call 16, 20 times a day, and some before lunch, and those are the ones who rise the greatest. Mm-hmm. Everybody in office on our operations support team, there's 11 personnel total. And aside from 3 of them, everybody comes rooted from the window covering industry, various manufacturers and levels of support. So there's somebody in that office who knows exactly what question you need answered and can do it with a decade or so of experience. Yeah. And so it's just pummeled into them from day one. Call. The moment you question, call us on speakerphone in front of your customer. We'll educate them and you at the same time. Humility provides the transparency and trust that somebody in my home I would demand from otherwise. And we hope they bring it. We think they're going to bring it. And then when they come in smelling like cigarettes with their pants around their, low around their waist, it's like, man, that's all ruined. So just be all those good things. Yeah. And that humility and that transparency and the way we do that support in the home, I think elevates that to a different level.
So if you look at from the beginning to now, what technology do you have now that you didn't have, and how has that changed the business? And you mentioned earlier you have new technology coming as well that might change your training and the ramping up of a franchise. What's the role in technology or with technology now in Bloomin' Blinds?
Yeah, I think the chase for technology truly stemmed from an ability to minimize the error loss, the margin erosion that humans to themselves, assumptions, thinking this is right, assuming it's right, and then pulling the trigger on it, committing money to it, and finding out afterwards that you can't return that product and you're stuck with it. That was the goal that we tried to eliminate when we pursued technology and enter AI. And now we have all these different capacities and tools and logic centers to derive answers from. And for us, it was like, what's possible and what do we do? So we first centered around, we put very big walls around the actual human to human interaction. Like the face-to-face contact in the home, eyeball to eyeball, was the one critical thing that couldn't be replaced by automation. And so that became the pillar, and everything else became, how can we make that happen faster and more often? Because that's where the franchisees generate revenue, is in the home, in front of the customer, showing transparency, expertise, listening, all those different things. And so once we identified, we stripped everything else away. And once that truly became what our core differentiator was how we do that process, everything else became just a step to that. And automations are built to automate manual steps. And so by being able to answer your question, we created our own technology. It didn't otherwise exist for franchising or really for the window covering space. And so what we created was a software that was purpose built for franchising, secondarily for window coverings. And by being able to share all the data from the customer journey through the product specifications, usage, maintenance, and the entire spectrum of our industry, keeping that in our own contained, protected environment allows us to analyze that data to a level of precision that no other firm or API or disjointed connection, I think, can provide. And so when we unlocked that, what if can be what is, it really, the goal became, it eroded, and the goal was to go faster first mover advantage on behalf of our franchisees, truly became the greatest benefit that we could grab with technology at the moment and kick downstream for maximum effect.
And do you find at the corporate office, are you using AI now in your business, or are franchisees using it? Both of you using it? Does AI factor in at all?
I would say most staff and franchisees use some capacity of AI on at least a daily basis through most activities. A lot of it is simple machine learning, automating manual tasks, right? Generative AI brings a different level of thinking and necessity and mindset to it. We will use generative AI, but it will be very algorithmic based, and it will be in the design space is where we intend to deploy that. Um, we'll do some keyword scraping of conversations and applying the keyword to the product generation, the specification generation on behalf of the customer. So there'll be a lot of intuitive type things that it's just listening to what they want and absolutely providing that,
Mm-hmm.
versus what we want them to buy. And that's always been our model: is what do you need? Here's the solution versus what do we want you to buy? Here's that product in a pitch.
Okay. Do you see AI being used to help improve a franchisee's performance, either by the franchisee or by the franchisor coming up with something through generative AI?
Absolutely. Primarily in the financial realm. I think the numbers, the financial realm is so vast, and there's so much expertise all the way from just a simple checkbook in a single family home to the private equity machines that they are. The range of understanding between that is so complex. To be able to take simple math, a P&L, whatever it may be, put it into a machine learning function, GPT, whatever you're using, and ask it to analyze math. I think that's a pretty simplistic usage, but one of the greatest impacts
Yeah.
that can be applied is what goes into each category has been studied and applied. Tax code and everything else is so known, and all that knowledge is so instantly available to those algorithms to analyze and address best practices and things like that, that I think it's almost a fool's errand to not use that level of intelligence or capacity. You have a question, you need the answer. In between is where we fail. Skip that part, get to the answer, and start deploying the solutions that you know are potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about company culture? How much, particularly because you're a family, you've probably given this a lot of thought, whereas other franchisors don't come together as a family and they don't think about culture as quickly. How prominent has that been in the development of your business through the years?
That is the driver. We have I think I'd say if you were to explain our culture, it's fail fast. We promote the failure. Lessons are learned in what most people call failures. To me, those are just incremental wins. So there's a desire and a push to go bigger and try new things and to constantly move the needle. And if it doesn't work, that's not a reason for punishment. That's a reason for learning. And like, okay, what'd you get? Share with everybody. Nobody else do that again. Everyone avoids that loss and waste and everything else. The culture is sharing. Like knowledge, it only has power when given to others. And I think that is where we really vibe. We have an in-office requirement, and that's no walls in the office amongst everybody that works. We're all in one big bullpen, very organic layout of the desks, and so everybody can hear and see everybody and interact communally. Because at the end of the day, we're doing window coverings. This isn't children's medicine or emergency services.
Yeah.
Like we're doing window coverings and shading solutions for the home. Like we can share information freely amongst staff. So that, I think that mindset permeates, and it allows people to interject. Oh, hey, what about this? And if, oh, okay, my bad. And if it was great, someone would be, hey, roll your chair over here and let's bring that in. But it's that fluid. And yes, we have the prescribed meetings, and yes, we have the briefings and all those other things that business needs to function efficiently. But there's this underlying theme or culture, if you will, for the topic of sharing and collaboration that isn't the traditional shared workspace in the office type environment. It's very honest and raw. And if you're emotional about something, you'll see tears. And if you're not, then you may see anger. But that stays in the room, and it's managed and dealt with because we have a relationship, because we're all there together.
Yeah.
And I think that the time spent together, which is more than our actual families at home during waking hours,
Yeah.
I think is fundamental to being able to have that level of communication that is required for certainly a growing brand or one that's moving, trying to move as much weight as fast as we are.
When you think about franchise development in the last several years, how has that changed, including are you using AI in any way in your franchise development, and how you're identifying prospective franchisees and the process of meeting with them and bringing them into your family? How's it developed? How's it changed? And
Yeah, I think that's probably for me some of the most exciting pieces of artificial intelligence and being able to bring 11 years now of experience in franchising, the good, the bad, the ugly, the highs, the lows, the performances, the lost metrics, the all of that together. There's not a single piece of data that we've collected over these 11 years or 25 years as a brand that doesn't have impact, that can't be analyzed and weighted to some degree to find the ideal, perfectly suited, right mental capacity, right emotional levers franchisee. We can see them on front end, we can see performance through, and we can see back end. And now we can totally close that loop with technology. The Zoracle profiles, the personality identifiers, the product sales mix, the royalty payments, the profitability, the general revenue, all of those metrics now find the value that the algorithm determines is necessary. And once we finish the build of this system, being able to have front-end personality test, performance review, product mix, and profitability on the back end absolutely gives us the full picture and identity of what personality comes in well, performs well, and then it excels well through the back end. And I think sans this technology, that didn't exist. You either had the first two or the last two, but you couldn't have all three. And this allows us to truly close that loop to a level of granularity and thinking that we as humans, I don't think we can process fast enough or thoroughly enough to find that answer.
yeah. Do you use, is your franchise development in-house or brokers on the outside or a combination? How do you do that?
For the last 4 years, our 3 and 3/4 years, so we've used Franchise Fastlane. So we onboarded with them in December of 2021, and that was one of the biggest moves our brand made for exposure. By partnering with an FSO that was growing and scaling as fast as Fastlane was,
Yeah.
at the right time for us to be doing the same was a total slingshot for our brand identity by partnering with them and joining their system. And it's been great. We didn't know FranDev. My brother's done the FranDev, but he's a window covering guy. He loves
Yeah.
sales. But that was a very necessary function, somebody understanding the brand that well as a founder, bringing in the franchisees worked very well for us until it was too big. And then we found the next level, and Franchise Fastlane was very much that, partnering with our momentum and theirs at the right time was the effect of two lighters coming together for a bigger flame. Much more so for us than I think for them. That was just enough catapult we needed on the stage to be able to tell our story and find some admiration in it, I guess.
Yeah. So was it difficult to get a franchise Fastlane? You had how many units at the time that they took you on? How many
Low
franchises?
50s. Low
Okay.
50s.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that's an area that they look in because so many franchisors try to get an FSO. Franchise Fastlane, we know well. They're a member of our Titus Center Advisory Board, as is Bloomin Blinds, which I appreciate that. And a lot of merging companies hope that they can work with Fastlane, but either haven't been able to because, well, for any number of reasons, as we would know. But was it a challenge for you to make that connection?
Yes and no. The first time we engaged Fastlane was late 2019, I believe. And they were very forthright and honest of what their capacity was, what their intention was to grow the brand, and how their methodology did that. And as exciting as that was, we didn't have the cash to support it. And so that became okay, this is the goal. We need to go get enough money. We need to raise enough finances to be able
Yeah.
to take this step. And so they said, okay, we can do this, but here's what it's going to cost and here's how it's going to feel. And we said, okay, we don't have the money and excited for the feeling, but half of it doesn't work. So post-COVID, home services success through the COVID storm and everything that became, we found ourselves with the finances to do it. And that was they were exciting. They were forthright. They were honest about the pathway. And I think there's few better ways to get your brand exposed to so many people outside the FSO model, particularly how Fastlane does it. You will be in front of the top performing consultants immediately. And that comes with a cost, but it also comes with a return of the cost. And that is, I think that's the unknown or the unspoken is the methodology is sound. It works. It works every time. Their model proves it. Nearly every time, as long as it's executed correctly. But I think that the difference that most franchisors they underestimate is the cash requirement to execute that strategy.
Yeah, definitely. So what's a typical day look like for a successful Bloomin' Blinds franchisee? What are they doing?
I think a successful franchisee's day starts with taking their kids to school themselves. It does for me. That's one caveat that I won't surrender yet, and I have no intention to, is being the person to physically drop my children off at their place for the next 8 hours when we're separate. So I think it starts with the family connection, right? What is grounding you to that effort that is going to be a massive pull on your heart, head, arms, and legs. So I think that fresh motivation is the first piece of that successful day. After that, they're touching their employees and their business as much as their position in it requires. And some that means taking appointments, measuring homes, consulting customers, and installing product. That means, I think the larger systems, that means a weekly or daily briefing with their teams before they hit the field. And then warehouse management and general business duties throughout the day at their leisure or discretion. But I would say that, just coming off our franchisee convention, I heard plenty owner operators that say their best day is, 6 appointments of soccer moms that just want to talk window coverings or tell about their kids. Some people have different scales of success than others. Not everybody wants to own 10 territories with 30 vans out there. And that was a realization that we had to mature into. Not everybody wants to be a king or an empire builder. Some people just want to control their destiny, and to them that's Friday. And that person needs opportunity too, and needs to be supported and celebrated. And I think our system can accommodate a little bit of both.
That's great. Well, Chris, this has been very enlightening. I think anyone who'd be interested in a franchise, and particularly someone interested in one of your franchises, would find the conversation interesting. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you got to be worn out being on the tail end of a convention. It's a lot of work, a lot of people, talking to a lot of people. And I want to wish you all the best for your future. Again, appreciate you being part of supporting the Titus Center and franchise education. And I look forward to seeing you the next time we get together.
John, congratulations on the success of the Titus Center, and thank you for what you do for franchising, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast with Dr. John P. Hayes. Tune in next time for more conversation around all things franchising.